Okay, thank you. Welcome to session 12. My name is Troy Stolp. I'm the moderator today. Sorry about my voice, but I've been drinking a little bit too much history in the last couple of days. So if you see me teetering, it's because I'm drowning in all this luscious history that we've got. Okay, today's session is Corresponding Heritages of Faith. And unfortunately, we have to make a small change. We are missing one of our speakers. She had an emergency in her family, unfortunately. So Linda Muhlenberg will not be speaking. But the sunny side of that is the speakers that we do have get a little bit more time. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Deacon Pat and Shelley Snook. And come on up.
Good morning. As Troy said, I am Deacon Pat Snook, and this is my wife, Shelley. We're members of St. Peter's Parish here in Council Bluffs. It's the church downtown. Most of you know, you can see it because it looks down on the center of town. We were asked to speak about the early history of the Catholic Church in Council Bluffs. We thought this would be pretty easy. You just go out and explain the 4 Catholic churches in Council Bluffs and you're done. But when we got into it, we said, no, this is really fascinating how things happened here in Council Bluffs. The information you hear today came from the Catholic Church in Southwest Iowa by Stephen M. Avila, The Silent Hills Speak by William E. Ramsey and Betty Deneen Schreier, articles from the Daily Nonpareil, the Frontier Chronicle published by the Pottawatomie County Genealogical Society, and a brochure by Mary Lou McGinn for the celebration of St. Peter's Catholic Church being placed on the National Register of Historic Places. We also cannot thank the Council Bluffs Public Library enough for the digital collection of photographs that they have. So, in the mid-1800s, Council Bluffs was an important center for the expanding network of railroads. There were many immigrants in the area building the railroads, many of whom were Catholics from various European nations. A number of them were Irish. Before any churches were created, the needs of the Catholics were served by traveling Catholic missionary priests who came by horseback and then later by railroad. As the faithful grew, the need to find a suitable location to build a church had to be found. The location of the church served as a focal point for a town and were very much about marketing and location. Even back then, they understood the phrase, location, location, location. A successful congregation needed to have its church face a major street or on a corner and be near other public buildings, schools, or civic structures clustering around city centers. Churches were seen as a way to bring respectability and stability to a community. When you go through almost any small town, you will see the church buildings are located at the center of the town. While doing our research, we found in the Catholic Church in Southwest Iowa that the typical evolution of a church began in a local hall or congregant house, followed by property acquisition, fundraising, and simple construction. For Catholic churches, the buildings included a home for the clergy, a school, and a residence for religious sisters. Resources for these initial foundations came from local people and the parent diocese. In the case of Council Bluffs in the mid-1800s, we were part of the Diocese of Davenport. At that time, there was only one diocese in all of Iowa. The creation of these churches was primarily a spiritual event, but they also had significant economic, social, and cultural impact. The year the city's name officially became Council Bluffs, which was 1853, was also the year the creation of a steady Catholic church presence came from the mutual cooperation of business and ecclesiastical interests. Samuel Bayless and Philip J. McMahon deeded lots 1 through 4 on Main and Pearl Streets to Bishop Loris, Bishop of Davenport, for a new church. Father Matthias Laurent and William Edmonds erected a temporary structure named St. Francis Xavier to honor the memory of Father de Smet. The site of the original structure is the location of the current City Hall. In 1859, a new pastor, Father J.F. Tracy, began construction of a permanent church that was not completed until 1865. This is the first formal church structure since the earlier St. Joseph Jesuit mission. The Reverend John Dashaker served as a pastor from 1865 to 1869. He has been credited with the introduction of the first church bell in Council Bluffs. The arrival of Father Bernard McMenemy, Father Mac as he was known, in 1869 seemed to be a turning point in the Catholic Church in Council Bluffs. Father Mac was born in Donegal, Ireland in 1830 and was educated at St. Columb's College, Londonderry. He immigrated to America in 1849 and affiliated himself with the Archdiocese of St. Louis, where he was ordained in 1854. He spent his first years in Missouri before coming to Iowa and serving in Georgetown in Monroe County between Sheraton and Ottumwa. Father McMenemy built churches at Melrose, Sheraton, Woodburn, and Leon. He saw the importance of the railroad and built churches along the routes of the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy railroads. Father Mac was known as a community builder and would become known for elevating the Catholic property and providing a legacy of architectural importance and opportunities for education in Council Bluffs. A volume from the history of Pottawatomie County contains the following passage about his arrival to town. His fame had preceded him, and he was received with warm enthusiasm, which ripened into lasting respect. St. Francis grew in size to the point that the parishioners felt a larger building was needed. They sold the existing property in order to begin building the new church. They received $25,000 from the sale of the property. This sum, along with additional contributions, allowed them to begin building the new church. The total cost of the new structure was $50,000, a tidy sum in those days. Compare that to the new St. Wenceslas Church just completed in Omaha for $30 million. So Father Mac purchased land at 5th Avenue and 6th to 7th Street. This would be the home of the new St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church. The cornerstone was laid April 24, 1887. The Daily Nonpareil reported that 5,000 citizens of Council Bluffs and visitors from the surrounding area attended the ceremony. It was a big day marked by speeches and a huge civic parade that included the Ancient Order of Hibernians, Catholic Knights of America, St. Patrick's Benevolent Society, members of Omaha Catholic churches and societies, a 16-piece band, and over 1,000 people marching in the street from the old church to the new site, along with numerous members of the clergy from Des Moines and Omaha. After the cornerstone was laid, a copper box was placed inside containing a parchment with the information about the church, who was involved in the laying of the cornerstone, the names of important government officials, several newspapers of the day, and a few coins of 1887 consisting of all silver pieces, metal, nickels, and coppers. Now, the majority of parishioners at St. Francis Xavier were of Irish nationality. In Council Bluffs around this time, the Germans were the second largest foreign-born group. German speakers possessed their own distinctive ethnic Catholic culture. Recall at the time, the Mass was said in Latin. However, the sermons were given in English. The German speakers, who were members of St. Francis Xavier, wanted to hear their own language from the pulpit, in the confessional, and in devotional services. The idea of creating a German parish in Council Bluffs to be named St. Peter's started with 6 German women in December of 1884, who gathered because they were concerned that many of their people were not active because of this language barrier. They formed a society to accomplish the creation of a German language Catholic church. Each member pledged 25 cents per monthly meeting to begin the building fund. Not wanting any opposition, they kept it secret from everyone except their husbands. By May 1886, 14 men from the German population also formed an association to aid in the creation of a German Catholic church. The group also eventually received help in funding their church from Father Mac and the parishioners of St. Francis Xavier. The total cost of building St. Peter's would be almost $19,000. The ethnic churches not only provided spiritual and social functions, but also offered important outreach to newcomers to adjust to American life. The ethnic parishes were not organized territorially as most parishes were. Catholic parishes have boundaries. Think of the boundaries in the public school system. A family would attend the church in their neighborhood unless they belonged to the ethnic church. The ethnic parishes were different in that they drew people from all parts of the city and surrounding area based on nationality. Their usefulness to the city was also important as a way to preserve a sense of order and stability within the ethnic communities. When the decision was made to build a church for the German-speaking population of Council Bluffs, approval was needed from the Bishop of Davenport. This was because the new church would fall under the jurisdiction of the already established St. Francis. In 1887, Bishop Henry Cosgrove, Bishop of Davenport, gave permission to build the church on the condition that the Benedictine monks from Atchison, Kansas, provide a priest for the new parish. At this time, the monastery was made up of monks who were natives of Germany. Fun fact, there were only two German national churches established in what would become the Diocese of Des Moines. One of them is St. Peter's, and the other is St. Mary's in Des Moines. So on July 17, 1887, 3 months after the laying of the cornerstone for St. Francis, the cornerstone for St. Peter's Church was laid with another grand celebration taking place. The Daily Nonpareil gave a recap of the day's events, which included a procession which started from St. Francis Xavier and moved up Pearl Street, led by the 5th Regiment Band, to Broadway, east to Glen Avenue, south to Pierce, and west on Pierce to the church site. The procession was comprised of the visiting societies from Omaha and Council Bluffs, probably the same societies that were there for St. Francis's parade, the Union Pacific, mayor and city officials, Ancient Order of Hibernians, Catholic Knights of America, members of the Omaha Catholic Churches, members of St. Francis, robed altar boys, and priests. Father Mack conducted the ceremony for the laying of the cornerstone in the absence of the bishop. At the conclusion of the service, Father Mack congratulated the German Society and expressed hope that God would bless them in their efforts and they might enjoy unbound prosperity in their righteous work. Many of the founders had been parishioners at St. Francis Xavier. Father Adolf Wasseling, OSB, that stands for Order of St. Benedict, was named pastor of the new church. He was a native of Hanover, Germany. The Sisters of Charity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, they're called the BVM Sisters, joined the Benedictine monks at St. Peter's to staff the parish school. As generations became Americanized, the need for ethnic parishes ended. Nevertheless, they were still aware of their ethnic roots and performed an important function in church and urban systems. St. Peter's was staffed by priests from the Atchison Benedictines until 1975. By this time, St. Francis was in rather poor shape. The building was 88 years old and was deemed unsafe. Bishop Morris Dingman of the Diocese of Des Moines, which was formed in 1911, covering southwest Iowa, decided it was best that the church be torn down and the parish be merged with St. Peter's. It was at this point that St. Peter's officially joined the Des Moines Diocese. Up to this point, it was still considered a German national church. So in the summer of 1975, the last Benedictine monk to serve as pastor of St. Peter's, Father Morris Kennedy, ironically an Irishman, left Council Bluffs, and the first diocesan pastor, Father James Clefman, was assigned. Council Bluffs would see 3 more Catholic churches built: Holy Family in 1908, St. Patrick's in 1926, and Our Lady Queen of Apostles in 1956. Holy Family, Our Lady of Carter Lake, built in 1970, and Queen of Apostles were joined for administrative purposes in 2011 under the new name of Corpus Christi Catholic Church. Now we'll move on to Catholic education. Our family are very strong believers in Catholic education. My siblings, our daughter, and I all graduated from St. Albert, and several members of the family also graduated from Creighton Prep and Creighton University. We were disappointed to not find very much information on Catholic education in the early days of Council Bluffs. However, we did discover some few good bits. In 1871, 2 years after his arrival in town, Father Mack brought the BVM sisters to begin St. Francis Academy for girls. The sisters were led by Sister Mary Xavier O'Reilly. Father Mack founded the St. Joseph School for Boys. As the years passed, St. Francis Academy would become St. Francis High School, a co-ed school, and St. Joseph Grade School for Boys and also became co-ed. Now, I've heard about Mount Loretto for as long as I can remember. My mother attended the school and her sister graduated from Mount Loretto. As we dug further, we found out Mount Loretto had a long and varied history. In 1905, the Sisters of Mercy purchased 10 acres of land at 1201 North Broadway. The sisters intended to open a home for the aged sisters when they retired. That home never came to be, and instead, in 1906, Mount Loretto opened as a seminary for small boys. The boys' school was closed in 1913. In 1907, an addition was made to the original building, and Our Lady of Victory Academy for Girls was opened and operated until 1923. From 1926 to 1931, the building was used as the Mercy Preparatory High School and was utilized by the Council Bluffs Sisters of Mercy and Omaha Province of Sisters of Mercy as the novitiate for their novices in the area until 1955. The Sisters of Mercy went through a restructuring in 1955, and Mount Loretto High School was created and started classes that same year. The final class graduated in 1965, and the remaining students were transferred to the new St. Albert High School. As each parish was built, a parish school would open. St. Peter's Parish School was staffed by the BVM sisters, who joined with the Benedictine monks to teach at the school. Holy Family was staffed by the Sisters of Mercy. During the time Bishop Gerald Bergen oversaw the Diocese of Des Moines, he wanted a central high school in Council Bluffs that would include boys, but the Depression, war, and the fact that he didn't want to burden the parishes with fundraising the school would push those plans aside. So when Bishop Edward Daly was made Bishop of Des Moines, he decided the need for a new school could not wait any longer. And when Father Albert David Saver arrived in Council Bluffs in 1961, Bishop Daly assigned him the task of starting to plan for a new high school. Father David Saver went to work immediately to identify property and help organize a fundraising drive. By the end of 1962, the fund had acquired more than $1.4 million in pledges. The school was formally blessed by Bishop Daly in June 1964. The building was in the shape of a Y with a boys' wing and a girls' wing. The school phased in its classes, starting with a freshman class of 175 and gradually shutting down the existing high schools in the area, St. Francis in Mount Loretto in Council Bluffs and St. Patrick's in Neola. The staffing drew on existing religious communities in the Des Moines Diocese, Sisters of Charity, Sisters of Mercy, Sisters of Humility, and 2 diocesan priests, Father Paul Monahan and Father James Watts Kiernan, and lay staff. The parish schools consolidated classes around the 1969 to 1970 school year. In the east end of town, grades 1 through 3 were held at St. Peter's, and grades 4 through 6 at St. Patrick's. In the west end of town, grades 1 through 3 were held at Holy Family, and grades 4 through 6 were held at Queen of Apostles. Eventually, St. Peter's and St. Patrick's were closed, and all students in grades 1 to 6 attended Holy Family and Queen of Apostles. Until this time, St. Albert only accommodated 9 through 12 grades. Once the consolidation began, they made room for the 7th and 8th grade students. One other fun fact I'm going to interject here. St. Patrick's School is still existing in Council Bluffs. Many of you probably eaten there. It's called Pizza King. That's the new wing of St. Patrick's School. I went there in 4th grade. I was in the old part. My brother Joe was in the new part, which again is still standing as Pizza King. St. Albert grew to add elementary grades, and as they did, the parish schools at Holy Family and Queens were closed. St. Albert now includes a child care center and a pre-K through 12th grade, and serve the area parishes which include Council Bluffs, Carter Lake, Neola, Underwood, Missouri Valley, and Glenwood. Now we'll move on to Catholic health care. In addition to building churches, Father Mack was part of the decision to bring Catholic health care to Council Bluffs. Two Sisters of Mercy, Sister Mary Vincent McDermott and Sister Mary Magdalene Bennett, arrived in Council Bluffs in August of 1887. They had been part of the Mercy community in the Archdiocese of St. Paul, which had been dissolved. Sister Vincent was an adept administrator and builder with a local connection to the city. Her brother-in-law, Dr. Francis Siebert. Sister Vincent was perhaps one of the first women in Council Bluffs history to organize and direct an enterprise as complex and challenging as the healthcare empire the sisters were created in the city. The nonpareil noted of her skills, "No greater work has been accomplished by any half dozen or more industries in the city." On September 24, 1887, the sisters began St. Bernard's Hospital, named after Father Mack, in a rented house. Later, they moved to a spacious mansion at Frank and Harmony Street, once owned by a local brewer, Conrad Geiss. The mansion had 17 rooms and sat on 3 acres. The new St. Bernard's opened on May 24, 1888. Later, the sisters purchased additional land around the house, increasing their property to 15 acres. In May 1890, Dr. Siebert, Sister Vincent's brother-in-law, helped convince the Board of Supervisors of Potawatomi County to take care of the insane. With the Board of Supervisors' approval, a new 125-bed wing was added to the hospital. As the community and need grew, the sisters separated the mental patients from the general population, and St. Bernard's was devoted exclusively to the mentally ill. A new 4-story brick building named Mercy Hospital was built in 1903, which included 135 beds. The 2 hospitals functioned separately until the 1960s. The hospital was not the only endeavor the sisters undertook. In 1896, they opened a school of nursing, and in 1901, opened a residence for young working women at 225 Harmony Street near St. Bernard's. The Council Bluffs community saw the Sisters of Mercy as figures of great importance for Catholic life and the wider development of the region. A 1910 article in the Nonpareil noted, "Mother Vincent is known as one of the most capable executives of the church in the West, and in her work in this city has built up Catholic institutions from a small foundation to a series of institutions holding hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of property and doing work for much of the benefit to the city and patrons of the institution." In summary, as you can see, Father Mack was an important force in western Iowa until his death, December 31st, 1892. He did not limit his pastoral service to just Council Bluffs. He was the first priest to regularly conduct Mass for Catholics in Glenwood, Pacific Junction, Plummer Settlement in Mills County, Neola and Honey Creek in Potawatomi County, and Shelby in Shelby County. When Father Mack came to town, there were about 200 members of the Catholic faith. During his 23 years in town, he saw this increase to nearly 2,000 and left the city with a beautiful and stately edifice known as St. Francis Xavier, which was the crowning glory of his work in life. This has been an interesting journey for my wife and me. We thought we knew about the Catholic Church in Council Bluffs, but what we knew only scratched the surface. In this presentation, we've only touched on the larger achievements of the Catholic Church in early Council Bluffs. There are many unnamed Catholic men and women throughout the city's history that have made an important impact. We hope you enjoyed our talk and that you learned something along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. And if the Pizza King was that explains why all the food there is heavenly.